Dr. Jae-ho Park stared at his computer screen in the quiet lab of the Korean Space Research Institute. The clock on the wall showed 3 a.m., but he couldn't stop looking at the strange images from Mars moons. Something was different about them. The new high-resolution scans showed patterns that shouldn't be there. He rubbed his tired eyes and took another sip of cold coffee. The scans of Phobos, the larger moon, showed straight lines deep within its structure. Natural moons didn't have straight lines. He checked the data again and again. There was no mistake. This can't be right, he said to himself, his voice echoing in the empty lab. He had been studying Mars moons for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The patterns looked like hallways and rooms, hidden under layers of rock. Dr. Park picked up his phone and called his research partner, Dr. Ha-won Kim. He knew it was late, but this couldn't wait. Ha-won, I'm sorry to wake you, but you need to see this, he said when she answered. Jae-ho. It's the middle of the night, she said, her voice sleepy. I know. But the new scans from Phobos. There's something strange. Can you come to the lab? An hour later, Dr. Kim stood behind his chair, looking at the same images. Her eyes were wide with surprise. These lines, they're too perfect to be natural, she said. And look at the spacing between them. It's exactly the same everywhere. Dr. Park nodded. There's more. He pulled up the scans of Deimos, the smaller moon. See these circular chambers? They're the same size and shape on both moons. The chances of that happening naturally are impossible. Dr. Kim finished his sentence. She sat down heavily in a nearby chair. Jae-ho, do you know what this means? He did know. If they were right, Mars moons weren't moons at all. They were built by someone, or something. The next morning, they called an emergency meeting with the Institute's director, Dr. Do-han Lee. They showed him the scans and explained their findings. The director listened carefully, his face growing more serious with each slide. Have you told anyone else about this? He asked when they finished. They shook their heads. Only the three of us know, Dr. Park said. Good. Keep it that way. Director Lee picked up his phone. I need to make some calls. This goes beyond our institute, beyond Korea even. Within hours, the quiet lab became the center of intense activity. Government officials arrived. Security teams set up outside the doors. Dr. Park watched as his simple research lab transformed into what looked like a military command center. By evening, scientists from NASA, ESA, and other space agencies around the world were joining emergency video calls. Dr. Park explained his findings again and again. Some scientists argued that the patterns could have natural causes. Others agreed with his conclusions. The debate went on for hours. We need to send a mission, Dr. Kim said during one of the calls. These scans can only tell us so much. We need to see these structures up close. The other scientists fell silent. Everyone knew she was right. But a mission to Mars moons would take years to plan, billions of dollars to fund, and the cooperation of many countries. If we're right about this, Dr. Park said, if these really are artificial structures, we're not just making a scientific discovery. We're rewriting human history. Everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe could change. Director Lee stood up. Then we better get started. Dr. Park, Dr. Kim, you'll lead the research team. We need to know everything about these structures before we send people up there. As Dr. Park looked at the scans one last time that night, he thought about how much had changed in just one day. That morning, he had been an ordinary scientist studying ordinary moons. Now, he might be part of the team that would prove humanity wasn't alone in the universe. He saved his files and turned off his computer. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions, and hopefully new answers. The mystery of Mars moons was just beginning. 6 months after Dr. Park's discovery, the International Space Mission was ready for launch. Commander Sun-Mi Lee stood before her spacecraft, the Stellar Pioneer, at the International Space Center. The morning sun reflected off its white surface. This was humanity's fastest-built space mission, created through the joint efforts of space agencies worldwide. "Final checks complete, Commander," Engineer Du-Yun Choi said, walking up to her with a tablet in his hands. "The ship is ready." Commander Lee nodded. She had worked with Du-Yun for 5 years, but this mission was different from anything they had done before. They weren't just going to study Mars moons. They were going to land on them and look for alien structures. The crew of 6 boarded the ship. Each person was chosen for their special skills. Besides Commander Lee and Engineer Choi, they had Dr. Park himself, who had made the original discovery. There was also Dr. Kim, who had helped confirm the finding. Completing the team were 2 more specialists, Dr. Myra Song, who was an expert in ancient languages and symbols, and Security Officer Tahi Kwan. Everyone ready. Commander Lee asked through the ship's communication system. She heard 5 clear yes responses. The launch went smoothly, as Earth grew smaller behind them. Commander Lee thought about their mission. They would take 3 months to reach Mars, much faster than usual thanks to the new engines developed for this emergency mission. During the journey, the team studied the scans of Phobos and Deimos every day. They found more strange patterns and structures. Dr. Park spent hours explaining his theories to the crew. "Look at how these lines connect," he said one day, pointing to a screen. "It's like the moons were built in sections, then covered with rock to look natural. But why? Who would do that?" "Maybe they didn't want to be found," Officer Kwan suggested. "Or maybe they wanted to be found only when we were ready." After 3 months of travel, they finally reached Mars orbit. The red planet filled their view screens, and above it hung the 2 small moons they had come to study. "Phobos ahead," Engineer Choi announced. "Starting approach sequence." The stellar pioneer moved slowly toward the larger moon. Up close, Phobos looked like any other space rock, gray, cratered, and lifeless. But they all knew better now. "Look there," Dr. Kim said, pointing to a spot on their screen. "That's where we saw the first straight lines in the scans." Commander Lee guided the ship to that location. They hovered above the surface while their instruments took detailed readings. "I'm picking up something strange," Engineer Choi said. "There's a power source inside the moon. It's weak, but it's there." Everyone fell silent. This was the proof they had hoped to find. Phobos wasn't just a natural moon with some unusual features. It was something that used power. "Prepare for landing," Commander Lee ordered. They had practiced this hundreds of times in simulations, but this was different. They were about to land on what might be an alien structure billions of years old. The ship touched down gently on Phobos' surface. Through their windows, they could see Mars hanging in the black sky, huge and red. The surface of Phobos was covered in gray dust and small rocks. "Suit up," Commander Lee said. "We're going outside." As they put on their spacesuits, Dr. Park's hands were shaking with excitement. After all these months of studying images on screens, they were finally here. The airlock opened, and Commander Lee stepped out first. Her boot made a print in the dust of Phobos, not the first human footprint on this moon, but perhaps the most important one. The rest of the crew followed. "There," Dr. Kim said through the radio. She pointed to a dark line in the rock face near their landing site. "That looks like the entrance we saw in the scans." They walked toward it slowly, their helmet lights illuminating the way. What looked like natural crack in the rock from far away now showed clear signs of artificial construction. The edges were too straight, too perfect. Commander Lee touched the surface with her gloved hand. "After all this time," she said, "we're finally going to learn what Phobos really is." Dr. Haejun Kang, the team's archaeologist, moved his gloved hand slowly across the strange markings on the wall. The team had found these symbols after following the straight line in the rock face. Their helmet lights showed a wall covered in what looked like a mix of math equations and star maps. "These aren't just random marks," Haejun said through the radio. "They're organized in a pattern. Look how they repeat every few meters. Commander Lee shined her light higher up the wall. The symbols went all the way to the ceiling. Can you understand any of it? She asked. Some of these look like star positions, He-Jun replied. He pointed to a group of dots and lines. And these could be numbers, but not like any number system I've seen before. Engineer Choi checked his instruments. The power reading is stronger here. Whatever's making it is behind this wall. Dr. Park moved closer to the symbols. After discovering the structures in his scans 6 months ago, he was finally seeing them with his own eyes. These must be instructions, he said, like a manual for opening the door. Dr. Kim took pictures of every symbol while He-Jun studied them. The rest of the team spread out to search the area. They were in a long hallway that curved gently, following the shape of Phobos' surface. After 2 hours of study, He-Jun called everyone back. I think I understand part of it, he said. His voice was excited. These symbols show planetary positions, and this group here, he pointed to a series of complex marks. It's like a key. The positions of the planets are the code. Engineer Choi connected his tablet to the wall using special tools they had brought. If these are positions, we can calculate where the planets were at different times. They worked together, feeding different dates into their computers. Nothing happened at first. Then, Dr. Kim had an idea. Try the date when we first discovered the structures in the scans, she suggested. Engineer Choi entered the date. Suddenly, the wall in front of them began to vibrate. Fine dust fell from the ceiling. The team stepped back as a line of light appeared in the middle of the wall. Everyone stay alert. Commander Lee ordered. Officer Kwon moved to the front of the group, his safety gear ready. The wall split open slowly, revealing a dark room beyond. Their helmet lights showed smooth metal walls, unlike the rough rock outside. The room was perfectly round, with a ceiling that curved high above them. The power reading is coming from in there, Engineer Choi said, checking his instruments. They walked into the room carefully. As soon as they entered, lights began to come on by themselves. Not bright lights, but a soft blue glow that came from the walls themselves. The team stopped in amazement. Look at this, Dr. Park said softly. He was pointing to something in the center of the room. There was a raised platform with what looked like a control panel on it. The panel was covered in more symbols, similar to the ones outside, but glowing faintly. He-Jun walked around the platform slowly. These symbols, they're different from the ones outside. Those were like a lock. These are, he paused, studying them carefully. These are coordinates. Star coordinates. Star coordinates. Commander Lee asked. To where? Everywhere. He-Jun replied. This isn't just a room. It's a map room. Look up. They all looked up. The curved ceiling had come alive with tiny points of light, like stars. As they watched, lines began to appear between the points, forming patterns. It's a three-dimensional star map, Dr. Kim said in wonder. But it's showing stars we can't see from Earth. This must be how they navigated between their observation posts. Dr. Park touched the control panel gently. More lights appeared in the ceiling, and a soft humming filled the room. This place, he said, it's not just an observation post. It's part of something much bigger. A network spread across space. Commander Lee looked at her team. They had just found proof that Earth wasn't alone in the universe. And this was only the first room they had discovered. What other secrets did Phobos hold? Chief Science Officer Myra Song stood in front of the glowing wall in the new room they had discovered. After finding the map room, the team had spent 3 days exploring deeper into Phobos. Each room they found was more amazing than the last. But this room was different. These aren't just pictures, Myra said, touching the wall gently. They're moving, like videos, but made of light. The wall showed scenes that looked like Earth's history. There were dinosaurs, ancient oceans, and the first humans. The images moved and changed as if they were watching a movie. They've been watching us, Dr. Park said quietly. All this time, they were studying Earth. Engineer Choi checked his instruments. These images are stored somehow in the walls themselves. The whole moon must be like a giant computer. Commander Lee watched as the scenes changed. Can you figure out how to control what we're seeing? She asked Myray. Myray nodded. She had been studying the control panel in the center of the room. Like the others they had found, it was covered in symbols. But these were different. I think I'm starting to understand their language, she said. It's not just symbols. It's a way of showing ideas. Like this one. She pointed to a mark that looked like a spiral. It means time. And this one means life. She touched different symbols on the panel. The scenes on the wall changed faster. They saw great cities rise and fall. They saw humans develop tools, build machines, and learn to fly. Look at this, Dr. Kim said suddenly. She was pointing to a scene that showed Earth from space. That's us. That's now. The image showed Earth as it looked today, with its cities and satellites. Then it changed to show Mars and its moons. They knew we would find them. Ho-jun said. They left all this here for us to discover when we were ready. Myray touched another symbol. A new image appeared. It showed strange beings, tall and graceful, with light seeming to shine from within them. These were the Watchers, the ones who had built Phobos and Deimos. They left us a message, Myray said. Her voice was filled with wonder. She had been working on translating their language since they arrived. They say they are the Watchers. They have been studying life across the galaxy for millions of years. The teen watched as more images showed different worlds, different kinds of life. Each one was being watched and studied, just like Earth. Earth was special to them. Myray continued, reading more symbols. They saw something in humans that they hadn't seen before. A kind of potential. Officer Kwan, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Potential for what? Myray worked with the controls some more. New images appeared, showing humans reaching out into space, meeting other civilizations, becoming part of something bigger. They were waiting for us to be ready, she said. Ready to join them. Commander Lee looked at her team. In just a few days, they had learned more about humanity's place in the universe than all of Earth's history had revealed. There's more, Myray said, her voice becoming serious. She touched another symbol, and the pleasant scenes disappeared. They left something else. A warning. The images changed again. Now they showed something moving through space, something that made everyone feel uneasy just looking at it. What is that? Dr. Park asked. Mayray's hands moved over the controls, trying to understand what they were seeing. I don't know, she said. But according to these symbols, it's coming. And that's why the Watchers left all this for us to find. Technical specialist Jin Woo-yoon worked quickly at the control panel. After Myray's discovery of the warning, the team had moved to a new room deep inside Phobos. This room was different from the others. Instead of showing past events, it showed things that were happening now. The signal is getting stronger, Jin Woo said, his fingers moving over the alien controls. Whatever is coming, it's getting closer to our solar system. Commander Lee stood behind him, watching the large display that filled one wall of the room. It showed a map of space around Earth's solar system. A red dot was moving slowly toward them. How much time do we have? She asked. Jin Woo studied the numbers on his screen. Based on its speed, maybe 6 months before it reaches our system. Dr. Park and Dr. Kim were working at another station. They had found files left by the Watchers that explained more about the threat. According to these records, Dr. Kim said, the Watchers encountered this species before. They call them the Devourers. They move from system to system, taking everything they can use. That's why the Watchers built Phobos and Deimos. Dr. Park added, they're not just observation posts. They're an early warning system. Myray was still translating more of the Watchers' messages. The Watchers knew the Devourers would come eventually. They left us everything we would need to protect ourselves. Officer Kwan moved to look at the display more closely. The red dot blinked steadily, showing the Devourer's approach. What kind of protection did they leave us? Engineer Choi had been scanning the moon's systems. There's something here, he said, deep in the core of Phobos. It's putting out more power than anything else we found. Commander Lee made a decision. Show me, she ordered. The team followed Engineer Choi's directions through more corridors. They went deeper into Phobos than they had ever gone before. Finally, they'd reached a massive door made of a dark metal they had never seen before. This is it, Engineer Choi said. The power source is behind this door. The door had no obvious way to open it, but Mayray found a control panel nearby. She studied it carefully. This is different, she said. It's asking for permission. We have to choose to open it. The Watchers won't let us use their weapons unless we decide to. Commander Lee looked at her team. They had come to Mars to study 2 small moons. Instead, they had found an alien defense system left to protect Earth from a danger no one knew was coming. What do the rest of the records say about these Devourers? She asked Dr. Kim. They don't communicate, Dr. Kim replied. They don't try to make peace. They just take what they want. The Watchers fought them many times. Jin Woo checked his tablet. We're getting more data about them now. Their ships are huge, bigger than anything humans have ever built, and there are many of them coming. Commander Lee stood in front of the door. Behind it was technology far beyond anything humans had created. Technology that could save Earth, or maybe destroy it if they weren't careful. We need to tell Earth what we found, she said. But first, we need to know exactly what the Watchers left us. Mayray, open the door. Mayray touched the symbols in a careful sequence. The massive door began to move, opening slowly to reveal what was hidden in the heart of Phobos. The massive door opened to reveal a chamber that glowed with blue light. In the center stood a tall pillar of crystal that pulsed with energy. Around it were rings of control stations, each displaying different information in the Watchers' language. This is incredible, Engineer Choi said, checking his instruments. The power readings are off the charts. This single room has more energy than all of Earth's power plants combined. Security Chief Tahi Kwan walked around the pillar, studying it carefully. This must be the weapon system the Watchers left us, he said. We should activate it immediately. The Devourers are getting closer every day. But Dr. Jaho Park disagreed. Wait, he said, moving to one of the control stations. We don't fully understand what this does yet. The Watchers were far more advanced than us. What if we make a mistake? Commander Lee listened to both sides. She knew they had to make a decision soon. Earth needed to know what they had found, and they needed to prepare for the Devourer's arrival. Mayray worked at the main control panel, translating more of the Watchers' messages. This isn't just a weapon, she said after a while. It's something more complex. The crystal pillar can do many things. What kind of things? Commander Lee asked. It can create a shield around our whole solar system, Mayray explained. Or it can send out signals to call for help from other civilizations. Or, she paused, reading more symbols. It can be used as a weapon powerful enough to destroy entire fleets of ships. The team fell silent, thinking about this power. It was more than anything humans had ever controlled before. Dr. Kim spoke up. The Watchers were peaceful explorers. They built this as a last resort. Maybe we should try to communicate with the Devourers first. The records show that many civilizations tried to talk to the Devourers, Officer Kwan replied. None succeeded. If we wait too long, we might lose our chance to defend ourselves. Commander Lee looked at the crystal pillar, thinking hard. The fate of Earth might depend on their next decision. If they chose wrong, everything could be lost. Show me more about the communication system, she said to Mayray. And the defensive shields. We need to understand all our options. They spent the next several hours studying the systems. Engineer Choi figured out how the shield worked. Jinwoo mapped the communication networks that spread between different solar systems. Dr. Park, and Dr. Kim analyzed the Watchers' records of previous encounters with the Devourers. Finally, Commander Lee called everyone together. "I've made a decision," she said. "We'll do this in steps. First, we activate the shield, but only at half power, so the Devourers know we can protect ourselves. Then we try to communicate. If they respond peacefully, good. If not," she looked at the crystal pillar, "we'll have other options ready." The team nodded in agreement. It was a careful plan that gave Earth the best chance for peace while staying ready for danger. "Send a message to Earth," Commander Lee ordered. "Tell them everything we found. They need to start preparing, just in case, and send a message to Deimos team. They need to activate their systems too. Whatever happens next, humanity faces it together." Ambassador Yu Jin Cho arrived at Phobos 1 month after Commander Lee's team activated the shield. She had been chosen by Earth's governments to speak for humanity if the Devourers responded to their messages. Now she stood in the communication room, watching the screens with the others. "The shield is working perfectly," Engineer Choi reported. "It covers the whole solar system, just like the Watchers designed it to do." The shield wasn't visible from Earth, but the team could see it on their screens. It looked like a thin blue bubble around the solar system. The Devourers' ships would reach it in 2 weeks. "Have they responded to any of our messages?" Ambassador Cho asked. Mireille shook her head. "Nothing yet. We've sent greetings in every format," the Watchers suggested. Still no answer. They had been sending messages for weeks. Some were simple greetings. Others explained Earth's history and culture. They even sent mathematical equations to show they were intelligent beings who wanted peaceful contact. "Something's changing," Jin Woo said suddenly. He pointed to his screen. "The Devourer ships are slowing down." Everyone moved closer to look. The red dots that showed the Devourer's fleet were indeed moving more slowly. Then they stopped completely, just outside the shield. "They're sending something," Mayray said. Her control panel was lighting up with new symbols. It's a response." The main screen filled with strange patterns. Mayray worked quickly to translate them using the Watchers' language systems. The patterns slowly changed into words everyone could understand. "You have the Watchers' technology," the message read. "Explain." Ambassador Cho stepped forward. "This is our chance," she said. "Help me send a response." Working together, they composed a careful message. They explained how humans had found the Watchers' outposts, learned their history, and discovered the warning about the Devourers. They told how humans wished to join the wider galactic community peacefully. The response came faster this time. "The Watchers are gone," the message said. "Their chosen successors died long ago. Why should you have their power? Tell them," Dr. Park suggested, "about how we solved the Watchers' puzzles, how we learned their language. Show them we are worthy of this trust." Ambassador Cho nodded. They sent another message, showing how humans had worked to understand the Watchers' knowledge. They included images of Earth's progress, its art, its music, its desire to explore and learn. The waiting seemed to last forever. Then new patterns appeared. "We have watched you since we detected the shield," the translation read. "You could have attacked. You did not. You sought peace first. Perhaps the Watchers chose better this time." The team looked at each other with hope. Ambassador Cho prepared another message, but the Devourers weren't finished. "We are not what the Watchers thought," their message continued. "We were like you once, seeking peace, but we found only war. We became what we needed to be to survive. Perhaps it is time to remember who we were." Commander Lee stepped forward. "Ambassador," she said, "I think we've just made first contact." Ambassador Cho smiled. "Not just contact," she said. "I think we've just changed the future. Send them an invitation to meet. It's time for humanity to take its place among the stars." 1 year after the first contact with the Devourers, Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Dr. Jaho Park stood in the new International Space Center, looking at the ships landing and taking off. Some were human vessels, but others belonged to their new allies, the people they had once called the Devourers, but who now preferred their real name, the Seekers. Still hard to believe, isn't it? Dr. Kim said, walking up beside him. She had just returned from a trip to one of the Seekers' worlds, where she had been studying their science and history. Sometimes, Dr. Park replied. Who would have thought that finding those straight lines in Phobos would lead to all this? The meeting room behind them was filling up with people. Commander Lee was there, along with Ambassador Cho and representatives from both Earth and the Seekers. They were gathering to discuss the next step in humanity's journey to the stars. The Watchers would be proud, Mayray said, joining them at the window. She had become Earth's expert in alien languages, helping everyone communicate better. They left us their knowledge hoping we would use it wisely. I think we have. Engineer Choi arrived with new data from Phobos and Deimos. The moons were now busy research stations where humans and Seekers worked together. They had found more of the Watchers' outposts throughout the solar system, each containing new secrets and knowledge. The latest scans show another hidden chamber in Deimos, he said, showing them his tablet. The Seekers think it might be a transportation system, something that can move ships faster than light. Commander Lee called everyone to the meeting table. Let's begin, she said. We have a lot to discuss. The Seekers' leader, a tall figure named Val, stood up. Thanks to Mayray's translation devices, everyone could understand each other perfectly now. For too long, we let fear rule us, Val said. We forgot who we were, became something else, but humanity reminded us of our better nature. Now we can explore the stars together, as friends rather than enemies. Ambassador Cho spoke next. The first joint human-seeker exploration mission is ready to launch, she announced. They will visit the Watchers' other outposts, learning more about those who watched over us for so long. And maybe someday, Officer Kwan added, we'll find the Watchers themselves. Jin Woo pulled up a map showing hundreds of stars. We've already found signals from 20 more outposts in nearby systems, he said. Each one might have new knowledge, new discoveries waiting for us. Dr. Park looked around the room at his friends and colleagues. A year ago, they had been a small team exploring what they thought were simple moons. Now they were part of something much bigger, humanity's first steps into a larger universe. Outside the window, more ships were taking off, carrying humans and Seekers to new adventures among the stars. The fear and suspicion of their first meeting had changed into friendship and shared purpose. We're not alone anymore, Dr. Park said quietly, and we never really were. The Watchers believed in us, left us their knowledge, trusted us to grow into something better. And we did. As the meeting continued, Dr. Park thought about all the young people now dreaming of traveling to the stars. The straight lines he had found in those scans had led humanity to its greatest adventure. The mysteries of Mars' moons had changed everything, opening the door to a new era of exploration, discovery, and hope.